Hey, there we are, everybody. Takes it forever to go live. When I go live, it says you're live on my laptop, and then the timer starts, and it goes up to about 30 seconds, and then it restarts back to 0, and it went all the way up to 39 seconds again before I actually went live. So let me give my man a tug in case she's watching. So from the time I hit go live, it was literally 1 minute and 40 seconds before you were actually seeing me. And I always used to think when that said you're live, I was live and I would start talking. And so I used to waste about 1.5 minutes of breath, and people would pick up somewhere mid-sentence. Everybody missed my hello and my salutations and so on and so forth. All right, Zini Mandarin, another ninja, 38 months. Wow. Shirley, my girly. Oh, that's all right. Another. Steve. Mike. Zini. I think I said hi already to you, Zini, didn't I? My number 2 son. All right, let's get started on the feedings tonight. Got a nice crystal clear pond to start with. We'll see what it looks like in a little while. Oh, I forgot I just topped my container of food off. It was almost empty, and I just jammed my hand into it, thinking, like the same empty milk jug, slamming it into the roof of the refrigerator principle. I was just thinking it was an empty can. I just shoved my hand into the fish food, thinking it was, destined for the bottom of the container, but it was not. Very much not. All right. Marconi Kanga, how are you? I'm sorry, Karga. My damn eyes are getting so old. I apologize if I read anybody's name wrong. My eyes are bad. I'm old. Long time indeed. All right, everybody. There's not many of you tonight, so feel free to chat away. You won't have a lot of competition, it seems. What am I doing here? I'm trying to get back. I don't know why my tablet here never updates me. You see how on my tablet here it says we got the 13 people watching now? Well, that's what that says on my laptop. A moment ago, until I refreshed it, it said we had 8 people watching. It used to tick up and down as people came and went. It always stayed pretty much in sync with what's on my laptop, which is the where the stream's being run through the actual laptop. Now it doesn't do that anymore. It'll stay 13 the rest of the night unless I reset it again at some point. All right, we'll get plenty of sleep, Steve. We got to have some kind of plans for this weekend because it's going to be a really good one, as you already know. Yes, Marconi, those are some koi. The bright yellowy white ones are koi, the larger ones. And then somewhere in there, I have a really dark colored koi. It's about half the size of these bright yellow ones, and it's like a really dark, it almost looks like a dark midnight blue. And then it's got sort of gold coloring on its eyebrows. It's actually my high school colors. My high school colors, oh, I see it here. My high school colors are navy and gold. And you can kind of see it swimming around over there by my kayak. It's got the little gold eyebrows on it. So that's a koi. And then I've got a bunch of goldfish. I've got some barbs in there. I've got cherry barbs. I used to have neon barbs, but I think they're all gone. I've got platies. I've got mollies. I've got guppies. I've got some minnows from my local reservoir. Don't know what species, but they're just some kind of minnow. And I do believe that's it. Although I do have a lot of snails in the tank. I got a bunch of nearite snails in there, and I always throw a bunch of ram's horn in from time to time just to make sure there's always plenty of those too. Laura. So I hope that answered your question. And we have a lot of different tanks to go, so feel free to ask what you're looking at while we make our way around the room. I don't think I'm going to do anything tonight. My back has really been bothering me again, and I held off as long as I could, but I took a muscle relaxer about an hour ago, and I'm afraid what's going to happen is it's going to be a least of both worlds. It's going to be just enough to make me drowsy, but not enough to take the pain out of my back. If I took enough to really make the pain go away, you'd all be watching me lying down on the floor and sleeping by the end of the live stream, because I do not like the Flexeril. It just knocks me out. So I took one pill instead of two. Hopefully that will give me some relief, and I'll be able to get through without complaining too much, which you all know me well enough to know I'm not happy unless I'm complaining about something. But I'm definitely not going to be in working on any tanks or anything like that tonight. I'm going to be just hanging out. All right. Speaking of hanging out, it's been minutes since I've had a puff. I'm not sure who all's paying attention and not paying attention, but if you'll remember, not too long ago, I talked about some plants that I had that were they had so much mites on them that I could see like the spider web covering the buds, and like it was just a disaster. So I took them outside. I hung them up in a tree out in the yard away from the house and just sort of let them dry naturally. But before they could dry naturally, they got rained on and the wind blew so hard they got knocked out of the tree. So I had to pick them up off the ground, hang them in the tree again. They got rained on again. I brought them over to the house and hung them up near the house where they got rained on again. And they finally dried out, and it was just a mess. But that is the hash oil I got out of it. And so I'm telling you, even if you're growing and you're not doing an amazing job, and this is actually, if you push it away from the edges, you can see it's got a little bit of consistency to it. It's almost like a gumdrop consistency. You can see that beautiful amber color. So that's the kind of quality hash oil I can get out of a piece of garbage plant like that you wouldn't have dreamed of ever trying to dry out and smoke. The idea, that's gross. But you do an extraction on it and you get that. And that was a butane extraction, by the way. I really kind of moved away from doing the hexane extractions. I really like the quality I get out of the butane a lot better. Let me do this hit and then we'll move on to the next tank. I usually use 2 cans per extraction, so I buy it by the case. So it usually costs me about $5 worth of wasted butane, but the product I get is really good. It's worth it. And I couldn't even begin to tell you what strain it is. It kind of tastes like Wicked Space, so it's entirely possible. But I didn't have anything on it labeling it, and it's been hanging out in the yard for so long I forgot what it was when I threw it out there. Because again, it wasn't even fully done. It was only, it had about 2 or 3 weeks left to go before it was fully ripe. At which point I would have cut it down, but it had so damn many mites and stuff on it that, well, you can tell I don't have any fans on in here tonight, can't you? Look at that smoke just sitting there, or vapor, I should say. So I should probably go put the fan on a little bit. It'll be chilly in here, but it'll help pull some of that out of the air. I don't remember what I was saying. Something about weed, probably. All right, let's get some food in here for these guys and gals. I've got at least one gal. I don't know what the other two are. The black one's female, although I don't think they know. All right, and tonight, instead of putting the flakes in there, I've got special sinking goldfish pellets, and that's what we're going to do. And then I'll go get caught up on some comments, see if I'm missing anything important. And then I'll run upstairs and get that fan turned on, pull some of that smoke out. Yeah, the stupid notifications work when they want to. I built a pond. It is 5 feet by 4 feet inside diameter, and it is 20 inches tall, again, from the inside. And yet I don't fill it up that deep. I only fill it to about 18 or 19 inches. So if you do the math, it works out to be about 218 gallons nominally. But because I put, rocks and birds and plants and things in there, it obviously has displaced a lot of the space. So I guesstimate it's around 200 gallons. Christopher, how are you this evening? Eric, sure wish I would get my check. Cash would be even better. Oh, everyone knows I would do it for free too. I'm a cheap date like that. I practically do it for free now. The YouTubes, that is. All right, let me go upstairs and hit that switcheroo. Actually, you know what? Let me sneak past you here first because I got to open the window over here in the corner. That way, when the fan comes on, it'll have a place to pull the air from. And it should start moving some of that cloudiness out of the room because it's going to look like a 1970s pool hall in here in short order if we don't. I can pool hall up an entire room all by myself in about 20 minutes. I remember the good old days when you could get black lung just going in a pool hall. Or anywhere. Smoking in the grocery store, airplanes, hospitals. Smoke every goddamn where. All right, that fan is on super low, so that should just pull a gentle amount of air through the room. Let's come over here. That might even be too low. Let's see if I can feel some air coming in that window. It is. I think we can step it up a little. We got a fan speed controller on there. I've said this before. If you have like a floor fan or a window fan or something, and it's like a 3-speed setting, spend a few bucks and you get a little fan speed controller. And then you plug your fan into that, turn the fan on high, but then use the speed controller to actually turn it on and off. And then you can dial it from full crank all the way down to just going while you can practically see the individual blades going around. And of course, infinitely anywhere in between. And I much prefer that over the simple 1, 2, or 3. It is cold again, Steve. It's stupid cold out. All right, Mandarin, I said hello, but if you weren't here, I will say hello again. Yeah, it's definitely not warm out, that's for sure. I put on a second layer when I went out to the Walmart this evening. And when I got up this morning, We have a small fan in the bedroom window, and if we don't have to use the AC, if it's a cooler night out, we just turn the little fan on, and it saves us some money on the electricity. And usually, like last night, for example, my wife had the fan on when she went to bed. When I came in several hours later, the room was pretty chilly, so I turned the fan off and pulled the shade down. But I left the fan in the window and whatever, so the room will still breathe a little bit. But when I woke up this morning, it was like chilly in the bedroom. And then when I left the bedroom, instead of it being warmer in the rest of the house, it was actually colder in the rest of the house. I'm like, what the hell? And when I came down here, I had the fan on just like I'm discussing now, and I forgot to turn it off last night when I went upstairs. Or I tried to turn it off. I probably hit the wrong button. I probably the on-off switch is all the way at the top of the steps, but the fan's down here in the window. It's a remote control. That way, if we want to turn the fan on, I don't have to come all the way down the basement. I got a switch at the top of the steps I can hit. And I probably hit the on button thinking I was hitting the off button or something. Anyway, long story short, I know, too late. I woke up this morning and the house was freaking freezing because I had that fan on all night. Hey, Rob, how are you? Enthralled by my story about leaving a fan on? All right, now you did it, Steve. All right, let's move on to the next tank. It does not feel like Friday night at all to me. So if anybody wants to party and have a good time, you let me know. I'm gonna try not to drag ass. I'll try to be more lighthearted and chipper and cheerful. Whee! How's that? Man, I can feel a 5-degree temperature difference between this end of the room and that end of the room. It's like there's a wall of cold air slowly making its way through the room, but that's good because it's pushing out all the smoky cloud that I've created in here. All right, what are we doing? We're going to get some tropical crisps, and then we'll throw in some of the algae wafers. And then that way everybody will get some nummies. Everybody will be happy. All right, here comes the algae wafers. I'll break them into chunks. Surprised everybody's not out front waiting. Well, it might be me talking, although you think by now I've been doing these live streams for enough years. You think me coming in here and talking and getting set up would get them excited, like the food's coming. The discus certainly know what's up. The goldfish certainly know what's up. But this tank always seems to go really chill when I'm doing the live stream and getting ready to feed. When I come in here when it's not a live stream and I walk up to the tank to feed it, it's mad crazy action with the fish. Oh, and Laura, if you're just listening and you're not looking, start looking here for a minute. I just noticed something that I think you might be interested in. Let me get you off your perch here. I noticed the other day I had more mushrooms coming up off my little mushroom batch that grows off of this. I don't know if how well you can see it or not, but do you see the mushrooms? I don't want to put too much of my camera in the water. Can you see under there? I got shit in the way, so I can't even see on the damn monitor if you can see that or not. I think you can, but right under there is a little stack of mushrooms. So let's see if we lift that up, if they'll break off or not. Oh, no. Awesome. Look at them. Look at them all. How cool is that? Now look, we got a little loner over here all by itself. And a few that have already died back. All that sort of black grungy stuff at the top there is mushrooms that have died back. But that is awesome looking. I'm loving those. All right, let's put them back under here because mushrooms prefer to be out of the light. Oh boy, I'm scaring the shit out of those poor fish. I'm turning this whole stick. They're all trying to hide underneath their piece of Anubias, and I'm rotating this stick right down here into the corner. They were not very happy about that. Who's going to tell me I don't have natural aquariums? Got motherfucking mushrooms growing out of my aquariums. They're so natural. Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't eat them for a big clock. We'll get to the lotus tank when we get around there in a minute. Have I ever had crypts melt? And do I use root tabs? No, I don't use root tabs, and I don't know if I've had any melt or not. But they can, as Steve said, when you do a transplant, depending on what happened and all that. Well, that can affect the plant. You might have a little bit of transplant shock. The leaves will die off, but as long as the root system's intact, it'll grow back. The small silver minnows. Hey, fishy, Saria. I don't know exactly what they are. I think they might be, according to some people. Steve, I think, said they're emerald shiners. And I do have one over here that is starting to get a hint of emeraldiness to it. And so they very well may be emerald shiners. Whatever they are, I collected them from my local reservoir. They were tiny, tiny, tiny little silver specks. They look like silver sparkles swimming around in the water. And they're 10 times their size now than they were when I caught them. And so if they are emerald shiners, I think they're going to get, what, 5 inches or something like that, 4 or 5 inches, if they live that long. Bob. Satin fin shiners, maybe. I don't know about mushrooms. I don't like mushrooms. I've never been a fan of any kind of mushrooms. The only ones I ever eat are the ones that make me see funny things. And I will not pretend I like those, but I will eat them because I actually get something out of them. Just regular old mushrooms, I think, are fucking disgusting. And the idea of a mushroom that I don't know and can't identify, I'm just going to pick it off the piece of wood growing in the tree. I don't think so. The only one I know that I can pick off of a piece of wood in the tree is the chicken of the woods. And it's a really, really vibrant, beautiful. The first time I ever found it in the woods, I went to go see what it was. I could just see this colorful thing back in the woods, and I'm like, what in the fuck is back there? Like, who went back there to throw? Like I had to figure out what was back there and how somebody got some colorful thing back there, and I made my way through, and it was a fallen oak tree and had a chicken of the woods growing off of it, and it was gorgeous. Didn't know what it was at the time, but I have discovered since. And so that one I could identify, and if I was starving, I would eat that. Any other mushroom, and no thank you. I am not going to eat it. Summer satin. I don't know exactly when I caught them. I definitely had a few in there that were Gambusia. So that's something separate. That's one species, was the Gambusia. And if you're not familiar with what a Gambusia is, it's like think about a guppy that got run through the wash and all of its color got washed out of it. That's what a Gambusia looks like. They're native, they're cousins to guppies, so they are live bearers. They are very similar to guppies. So some of them were them. And then I had at least, possibly more, but at least 2 other species of shiner. One was growing much faster than the other. So I had one that was larger. That group was clearly its own group. And then I had one that was smaller, and they were clearly another species. Now, again, could there have been other ones mixed in? Possibly. But there were clearly 2 distinct species. And the larger of the ones are all developing these sort of white tips on their fins as they get bigger. Well, now that I'm looking at them more closely here, let's see if we can see this while I'm standing here. So you can see like that one, for example, has the white tips very clearly visible on its fins. But if we look at these other ones that are smaller, they may be the same species and just haven't developed the white tips, but they also may be something completely different. I do not know. I used to have a bunch of them in here, but a lot jumped out and a bunch got eaten, I think, or at least a lot jumped out. I know a lot jumped out. So again, is that 2 different species right there? I don't know. But the ones with the white tips on their fins, I think those are the emerald shiners, because when we get around to this tank here where the laptop's sitting, that has some larger ones in there. And the big one, you can clearly see hints of that sort of emerald green color. It's really pretty, actually. I think of it as more of a turquoise green color, but they say emerald probably because it sells more fish. Although I don't know who's buying those fish. All right, we're starting up here before we actually feed because I want to get some of this stupid duckweed off the surface. So we'll start by skimming this corner and getting a bunch out. This tank always feels so cold. I wonder what the actual temperature in here is. I guess I could put a thermometer on it and find out. Trying to keep some of the water sprite in there. I just want to get the duckweed out. All right, that's a good score. Look how much duckweed I got. And then there's some frog bit, and they even got some water sprite in there for everybody. So the pond will look much more natural next time we get down in there and look at it. So that should give us enough light shining down into the tank that we can actually see what's happening when we feed it now. And if you give me a second, I'll also go turn the light off on the pond, and that'll cut down on some of the external light and glare and whatnot. All right, we started with the crisps. Let's stay with the crisps. All right. Fish and football, how are you? All right, let me see where I was. I've never heard of that fish. That's interesting, fishy. Thank you, Laura. You hate the duckweed. I have a love-hate relationship with the duckweed. Let's see. There's a lot of goldfish in the pond. I have some koi in the pond and a bunch of live bears and a few other barbs and some other stuff. But mostly what you're going to see is goldfish and koi when you look in there. But I do have a lot of different stuff in the pond. The frog bit is actually not doing real well. I was looking at it. All right, somebody can stop signing me. Okay, I've got you. Thank you, Laura. I do not have a doobie to smoke, but I will smoke some more of my hash oil because I got lots of that. I don't have any bud to smoke. I do have bud in the other room, but it's in jars and it's set aside for purposes. And so I'm trying to avoid hitting on that if I can. And then I got bored the other day and decided I'd make a batch of hash oil for something to do. So I took the last little bit of weed I had. And I mixed it all together. And I made a batch of hash oil. This is not that batch. I still have some of that in the other room. But what I made was out of Purple Kush, Poochie Love, and Hawaiian Puff. And so I was calling it Purple Poochie Puff. And I think it would be fun to make a strain, hybridize something that you can call Purple Poochie Puff. When you can't say it 3 times fast anymore, then you're cut off. You don't get any more. TK Tropicals, how are you? No, the fish will be quite all right. I go over this a lot. A lot of people ask me about that. It's interesting how often people think that or comment about whether me smoking in the room with the fish is going to get them high. As far as I understand it, people don't even get high um, from a contact buzz. Like that's not really true. Like if you, you know, fail a drug test at work or something, a lot of people say, "Oh, I was at a party and there were some other people smoking, and I must have got," you know. Back in the day, that was a common excuse people would try to make, and every time they'd be like, "Yeah, right, buddy." It don't work that way, and it doesn't work that way. Like you don't catch a contact high. I mean, I guess maybe if you were subject to enough smoke in a small enough confined space for a long enough period of time, it might begin to affect you. Um, but again, you're not really going to get the much of a dose because what people don't realize is by the time you're exhaling that smoke, most of the THC and stuff has been absorbed out of it. You don't have to hold it in for a real terribly long time. A moment or two is fine, and then you blow it out, and you've got probably 80 or 85% of the THC is already out of it. So all that smoke you're exhaling is not really potent smoke. You can have somebody inhale that shit directly out of your lungs, and it's barely going to get them high. So just being in a room with people doing that, you're probably more likely to catch a buzz off the actual smoke coming off the end of the joint than you are the breath that people are blowing the smoke out of. And then, of course, it's not water soluble, so the fish could never get high no matter how much I smoked. Yeah, all the chemicals and all that in marijuana, they're not water soluble. So again, even if I was blowing my smoke directly at the water and it was really potent smoke, it's still there's just no way for me to get that smoke to the fish. There's nothing I could do to get them high other than feed them some cookies, which I sort of did once by accident. I never really even thought about it, honestly, but the topic comes up a lot about getting fish high and what it would be like. Could they get high? And um, again, I don't know what would go through their little fishy brains, but technically they do have the cannabinoid receptors. And so, you know, if you were to give them some sort of water soluble concoction or you were to give them something to eat that had been, you know, saturated in it or something, it would affect their brains. I just don't know how. I would probably just make them swim around real funny or be all lazy and shit. They'll do the fish equivalent of having tank lock. They'll just be sitting there staring at the human show outside the tank. What are they doing? Ever wonder like what's outside this tank? Maybe we're just in some little box of water and there's a bigger, larger world outside that we live in. Well, coolie loaches usually look like they've been eating amphetamines. They run around like mad things. Yeah, I didn't have any goldfish show up dead or anything after I accidentally. And again, remember everybody, I was eating some marijuana cookies that I had made. If you don't know the story already, and I dropped a crumble into the pond, and a goldfish swam up and ate it before I had time to even react to scoop down and get it. But it was literally like a crumb. It was like the size of a BB. So technically, I guess that goldfish did get some tiny little trace amount of my weed cookie in him. So maybe later that evening, that goldfish had a hell of a night. Had some really deep thoughts. You're observing deep sky. Well, don't piss it off. It sounds like if it becomes self aware, it's going to kill all of us. Yeah, I changed that goldfish's life. That goldfish saw God the other day. All right, speaking of which, let me do another hit while you enjoy this tank here. Let me give you a. I never can get a good angle that I'm happy with on this fish tank. It's because somebody put a pond in the middle of the floor, and it just makes it hard to put the camera out. There, if you look at the tank lengthwise, I know you're getting that weird sort of perspective angle, but at least you get to watch the fish sort of swimming back and forth rather than in and out of your line of sight. Thank you, Laura. The ones with the red tails on them are Buenos Aires. There is a tiny little baby Buenos Aires in there. It's about a half an inch long. If you look closely, you might see it. And then the really, really diamondy, sparkly ones are diamond tetras, which also breed fairly regularly in that tank. I haven't put new fish in that tank in years, and there's more in there now than when I started years ago. Mm, that's not entirely true. Uh, Look, did you just see it swim by? That little one right there. That's the baby um, Buenos Aires. One of my viewers did give me some fish recently, and there was a couple of big Buenos Aires in the whole batch he gave me, and I did put them in that tank. And so I did add a couple within the last year, I would say. So I can't say I haven't put any fish in that tank. Deep beer. Yeah, I figured it was something like that, but I couldn't resist a joke like that. That just sounds like some sort of orbiting space platform that if you piss it off and it becomes self aware, we're all done for. Um, I'm sure a lot of the babies do get eaten, but as you can see, the tank has tons of hiding places, and so some of them do survive. I know at one point I had four. They had to have been from the same batch of eggs because they were all the same size and they were all like that little half inch. They weren't couldn't really call them fry anymore, but they were still really small fish, still smaller than you would ever see them at a pet store. And there was four of the diamond tetras like that swimming around with the larger tetras, and so at least four from one batch had survived. That is so far the only um, Buenos Aires tetra I've seen that's really small. So again, that's the little one right there, and it's so easy for it to move around the tank without being seen that I see one here and then I see one there, I don't know if it's the same one or not. I need to see more, I need to see at least two at the same time to be able to definitively say, aha, there are two in there. But right now, I only think there's that one. I've looked and looked and looked, and I've not ever seen more than just that one swimming around by itself. But it proves that they can do it, and even if only one survives now and again, that'll be enough to keep the tank stocked without me having to do anything as time goes on. So I'm happy with that. All right, let us moveth on to the gourami tank. Like I said, I'm going to try to get the whole trip around the room done in an hour, and then we can sit down for a little while and see how the rest of the evening goes from there. Let me raise you up a little bit. Put you in that little big boy chair. There you go. Don't you feel better up there? All right, let's do the Vibra Bites because my big fat catfish, keep wanting to call him a goldfish, my huge fat catfish down there in the bottom gobbles these Vibra Bites up when they get down there. It's hard to believe I just cleaned that tank, a week ago and got the glass all cleaned down with a razor blade and everything. It still looks like that again already. Where am I? Shamu, my son. My number one son. My problem son. I've had Molly's for a year and no babies. That's hard to believe. I mean, I believe you. Let's see. The huge fish you see coming out of the bottom on the right, sort of right in front of you right here, that's my striped Raphael. It's Platydoris armillatus, I think. But it's a Platydoris, not a Corydoris. Yeah, the discus is getting bigger and looking beautiful. You guys don't really get to see the full color. The light just sort of washes all the color out. I don't know how to make adjustments to the camera to, it's set to auto, so it should sort of autofocus on everything. But if I could turn the color down and you could really see the subtlety to it, it's a really, really gorgeous discus. Oh, that you're not going to have that female very long if you've got one male or one female to three males. It should be the other way around. If you want to fight Zini, you go ahead. I ain't fucking getting in the middle of that. Here, let me see if we can get close to this discus without freaking it out. It's kind of coming out on camera. You can definitely see how beautiful orange it is, but there's so much blue in there that comes out when it's there. You go. You can see some of it in its dorsal fin there. When it turns just the right direction and moves around, it has just got an absolute ton of blue in it. And then my angelfish that's in this tank, where is he? This one is a stunner as well. This has like blue and green mixed in with it. It's a lace zebra. And if the glass wasn't so smudged and it wasn't running away from me like that, you'd get a better look at it too. It's a really, really pretty angelfish. It looks kind of, standard run of the mill, standard issue angel when you see it at this distance and you just kind of look at it swimming around. But if you actually look at it up close and pay attention to it, it's really impressive. So I'm quite happy with that. That angelfish was a gift along with three of these discus, and we'll see the other two in a minute when we get to the tank that they're in. The two that I have in the tank I'm standing in front of seemed to have paired off, and they were kind of bullying that one in this tank, and so I separated them, and so that one's in there by itself, and then the other two are over here. So my viewer gave me 4 fish total, 3 of the discus and that angelfish, and they were all about the size of a dime, maybe a nickel when I got them. Maybe an inch in diameter at the most, something like that. If you're not familiar with what a dime or a nickel is, maybe something about that size at the most, just a little teeny thing. Since I had the lid to my stuff in my hand, why not just do another hit? Mike, you made it. Yeah, Steve's seen him in person. He knows what I'm talking about. That discus chases that angelfish around all the time. It bullies every fish in that tank except for the big catfish on the bottom, and the loaches don't mind it. It's like magically appearing smoke. Yes, it is, fishy. I've had that catfish for very long, since before I started my YouTube channel. Oh yeah, a few seconds out of the water is not going to bother that filter at all, Mandarin. Oh, that's a bummer. Nobody likes losing fish. All right, let us moveth on. We'll get to this tank for a bit briefly. This is my 29 miscellaneous, and I call it that because when I started my YouTube channel, the tanks I had, the fish room wasn't even complete at that point. But out of the tanks I had, each tank sort of had a theme or a feature type fish. Whereas over the years, my early days, this was the first quote big tank I ever bought. I had 10-gallon, and then I realized one day like I could buy a great big 29, and so I bought this one. And then I did a lot of experimenting with different fish, and 3-4 years worth of having all kinds of different stuff in here. In fact, that striped Raphael you were just looking at started its life in this tank. And so that's why I just call it my 29 miscellaneous. It's had all kind of different stuff in it. If you'll notice down on the bottom very carefully, you'll see I do have some loaches down there too. Those loaches are also among the oldest fish. They're right around the same age as that striped Raphael. I don't know exactly who's older. I'm going to say probably the striped Raphael is a little bit older. But I have had those loaches since my very early days of fish keeping. So probably about 10 years now, maybe a little more than that. I got them in maybe 2013, 2014 on the outside. So yeah, I guess maybe about 11 years now. Trying to give you a look at the angelfish up there, but it's just eating food off the surface. And this tank has the red and blue tetras in there. I don't know what they're, I can't remember what they're called. The red and blue something tetras. And then I have the loaches, and I've got a few black skirt tetras in here too. I really like the black skirt tetras. They're one of the first types of fish I ever bought. And next to the angelfish, when I think of tropical fish, like the first fish that flashes into my brain is like the black skirt tetra. Colombian, yes, thank you, Shamu. Yeah, the Java in here is getting out of control too. The red tail shark, I saw it not long ago. I'll keep my eye open for it. Maybe it did die. I don't know. We'll see. Excuse me. Yes, they're red and blue Colombian tetras. No, they're not piranhas, but they are related to them. And no, the angel is much bigger than the tetras are. That's weird, Ark. I wonder why. I have a few yo-yo loaches in the tank we were just looking at. Some of the loaches you see in here are yo-yo loaches. Um, that one back there in the corner, that's again one of my oldest fish. That's an Angelicus loach. You'll notice it has a very distinct sort of dot pattern on it. Whereas if you look at these other loaches, they have that really crazy squiggly. That one's a male, and that one's the female. You see how big and fat her belly is, and I've seen her even fatter than that. I've never seen them lay eggs or have babies or whatever they do, but I've seen her way bigger than that. So whatever she did, I guess she did it. But I've never seen any baby loaches in the tank. So I've got those two. These are actually striated bodias in this tank. Oh, check it out. Here, you see the little tail sticking out of my cichlid rock right there? That's the reason I got these rocks. The loaches love these little rocks. I have two of them in here. That's one, and then there's the other one right there. You can see that's a fake cichlid rock, but you can see the tail of the loach sticking out of it. So these are striated bodias, and I know striated bodia almost translates literally to striped loach, but it's not a striped loach. It's not a zebra loach. If you look at any of those, they're clearly different. But if you look up striated bodia, you see what I have in my tank. That's the only name I've ever seen them listed as, other than whatever their, real official scientific name is, which I have no idea. But they are definitely not the same as the zebra, and they are definitely not the same as just regular old striped loaches. All right. This is the tank where you can see this really big one here. He's the big meanie bastard, and he sort of chases the other ones around. Again, we're not really getting much in the way of the color being done justice, but if you look, if you're lucky, you might get to see the hints of green color in their fins. They're really, really pretty fish. They're frantic. They drive me crazy. They drive these poor discus in here crazy too. See, here's the other two discus are in this tank. This one's gotten kind of used to the camera. It sort of associates me and the camera with food. And of course, like stupid angelfish, they always face the camera, and so you can never actually get a good look at their side. Come around quick, and nope, they turn to face the camera every damn time. God, they're annoying. Anyway, let's throw some food at these, and then we got one more tank to look at, and then we will be on to the actual discus tank over yonder with all my actual full-grown, big, large discus in there. So sit tight. We got a couple more tanks to look at, and then I will be enjoying some fish with you. So let's get some food thrown in here. We're going to do the vibra bites because I want a lot of stuff to get to the bottom fairly quickly so that the discus get them. Otherwise, if it's stuff that floats, gently in the current, those minnows destroy it and it never gets a chance to get to the bottom. But these vibra bites sink pretty quickly, and that way the discus will get some of them. Because those minnows are like friggin' torpedoes. Crazy fish. The coolie loaches are in the tank we were just looking at with all the other loaches, although I didn't see them swimming around, but they are in there. At least they were the other day. Just like my red-tail shark that Shamu gave me. Now that he's mentioned it, I know I haven't seen it tonight either. Now I'm thinking about it. When is the last time I saw that damn fish? Maybe it is dead. Who knows? He might. Shamu, he might hide in that log all the time. Oh, that's probably exactly what happened, Art. Yeah, sometimes you can go on YouTube and you can see like live cams of the moon or live cams of the surface of the sun. I'll space out and watch those occasionally for a little while. Oh, there's a lot less minnows in here. I've been trying to get them out. I'm putting them on pizzas. Exactly. I've been drying them and salting them. Queen Bleh, how are you? What are you going to do with your coal goldfish? I do not know. I'm not sure what you're asking there. 8-inch rainbow fish. Damn, that's huge. That is a hell of a name. All right, let me come around on the other side of you. I'm going to walk around the pond to get there. Yep, this end of the room is definitely much colder than this end of the room, but I will also say it isn't all completely clouded up with smoke. So if you just joined us, well, you can't really see that. That is the hash oil we're hitting on tonight. Some good stuff. So that's what I'm working on. I don't know the flavor. I think it is Wicked Space, but I don't know. I lose track. It all runs together for me. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter now, does it? It's all academic. I could tell you the name. Honestly, I could tell you it's Blueberry Marble Fluff. for all you fucking know. I can say whatever I want, but at least I'm honest with you. I don't know what the hell it is. I think it's Hawaiian Puff, but I mean Wicked Space, but I'm not sure. I know it's not Hawaiian Puff. Well, that didn't work out very well. What the hell happened there? Is my torch running out of juice? Oh, what are you going to do with your reject goldfish? I was going to say it depends on where you are. There's a lot of places that have goldfish ponds, malls, stores. Sometimes will have goldfish ponds. Sometimes you can take them to places like Petco or PetSmart, and they'll take them. They won't give you anything for them, but they'll take them from you. Trump demanded UK legalize weed. That's interesting. I wish maybe he would do that here because he can anytime he wants. That was more like it. Look at that groove I cut in the middle of that, and all that melted yumminess as it dribbled to the bottom of the cup while I was doing that hit. That was a good one. I am in a legal state, but the federal government still has marijuana on Schedule 3, which makes it very much illegal in most places. And it's also, again, just something that can be done with a snap of a finger. Any president, anytime, could have done it at any point. Instead of rescheduling it, they should just deschedule it. Just take it off the damn schedule. It doesn't belong on the schedule. Alcohol's not on the schedule. Cigarettes aren't on the schedule. All right. We're going to do some more of the Vibra Bites just because Gilgalad here loves them. How much did you sell it for on Craigslist? I don't know, Ark. I've thought about that before, like going on eBay or something and selling weed, or selling my weed, selling my. I got my brain going in two different directions. Selling my excess aquarium plants, but to me, that just seems like it's more of a hassle than it's worth. So I don't know. If I were you, I would look on there and see what other people are selling it for and do something comparable to that. All right. Yeah, I feel bad for that banjo cat too. Jumped out of the tank. Found him on the floor one morning, which was a bummer. All right, we got one more tank to feed. We'll let this one finish, and then we'll move on to the discus tank, and then I can sit my butt down and have a relax. Oh, now I got sticky crap all over my fingers. It was over the edge of the lid. When I put the lid on it, it got all stuck on it. And when I pulled the lid off, you see all the sticky strings on it. Now my fingers are all stuck together. So let me go get a little bit of rubbing alcohol. Excuse me here for a moment. Speaking of rubbing alcohol, when I was at the Walmart today, I was going to pick some up. Well, I did pick some up. And they actually, in addition to the isopropyl, they had ethyl alcohol, which is, ethanol, the kind of alcohol you drink. And it was interesting. It didn't say anything about it being denatured because you can go to the paint department and get denatured alcohol. And denatured alcohol is ethanol or ethyl alcohol. It's just got an additive in it that'll make you sick if you try to drink it. So this just said it was ethyl alcohol. It didn't say a word about it being denatured. I'm sure it did. I would have had to look at the label really closely. But I almost bought it just to use it as a solvent, like the way I use the isopropyl. But then I looked at the price. It was like $4.38 or something for a bottle, where I got the 91% isopropyl for $2.38 or something. It's about half the price. So I said, yeah, we don't need to use the ethanol. We'll use the isopropyl. Well, ethyl alcohol is just common sugar alcohol. It's the kind we consume. It's in beer, wine, grain alcohol, vodka, gin. That's all ethanol or ethyl alcohol, depending on how you want to term it. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I differentiate them necessarily. I will say Shiner if I'm speaking about that type of minnow specifically. But if I say minnows, I include Shiners in that. They're all the same to me. They're all just minnows of sorts, little tiny fish that swim around in streams. Huh, that's interesting. And I generally just say minnow because we have so many different species of little oddball fish that live in our local waterways and whatnot. I don't have any idea what they are. Now, there's a lot that I wouldn't necessarily call. Look, you can see my pleco is out. There's a lot that I wouldn't think of, like the suckerfish and some of the darters and sculpin and things like that. I wouldn't consider minnows, but there's lots and lots of small little schooling fish that swim around, and I think all of them is minnows. All right, let us start with the vibra bites in here, and we're going to end with the vibra bites too, because that's all I'm putting in here. Hey, calm down now. All right, that should be enough for everybody. No, that's the same amount of discuses that were in there last time. Scots accent? I don't know where I would get any Scots accent. That's interesting. Never heard that before. I do get a lot of "Where are you from?" Because of my accent, but no one's ever pegged me as being outside of the United States before. That's interesting. Oh, thank you, Laura. All right, everybody. I'll give you a few more minutes eyeing up the tank without my lovely face interfering with it. I'll have my last swig of coffee. And do I want to see if I can find some weed? I'm pretty sure I took all the last bit of my smoking weed and made it into that goo. Oh, I got some sugar leaf stuff that I have reserved for rolling a joint. I guess I could roll a joint. Do I want to roll a joint? Not really. All right. Stick with the hash oil. Okay, I think this is it. So you heard me earlier. Maybe you did, or maybe you didn't. I took my last little bit of smoking weed that I had. It was Purple Kush, Poochie Love, and Hawaiian Puff, and I mixed it all together, and then made it into hash oil. And so that is Purple Poochie Puff. That's another pretty good batch that turned out. This was all made not from some garbage I had hanging out in the yard, but this was actually made from cured bud. Again, 3 different varieties of bud, but I only had a little bit of each. So I made them all in one batch. And this is a hexane extraction. I only do the butane extraction if I have enough to fill my glass extraction tube. And it takes a couple of ounces of weed to do that. I got to put a lot in there to really fill that thing up. So when I've got a quarter ounce or a half ounce or some little small amount, I'll do a hexane extraction when I do it like that. So again, you still get that kind of lovely quality even with the hexane. That's good. That's so much better than that shit from the yard. I know that stuff looked good, and it is good, but again, when you compare it to something that's really good, like nice cured done bud, it's so much better than some garbage I had hanging out in the yard and rained on. But waste not, want not. Like I said, that's some good stuff for what it is. All right, let me go top my torch off, make sure I got plenty of juice for when I sit down. And then I'll come get caught up in comments. All right, torch is filled. Coming around the corner. Oh, I almost sat down just to have to stand back up again to turn my light on, but I remembered in time. All right. Let me get you situated here, and then we'll get caught up on some comments. Oh, where were we? Canadian, that's interesting too. I do make fun of Canadian accents in a lighthearted way. I say a boot. What are you talking about? And sorry, I say that sometimes just for fun. I don't remember ever saying that on camera though. Mel's back. Yeah, I was gonna say I've got more of a Baltimore accent than anything. I've tried to get rid of it, and I was a truck driver for a long time. So when you're driving a truck and you're moving around, talking to a lot of different people, I think that helped me break some of my Baltimore accent. You'll notice I say Baltimore. I hit that T sound in there. That's not a Baltimore thing. Most people that live around here don't say that. No, Fishy, I do not think the discus are hard to keep. They might have been back in your father's day, as you're saying. But nowadays, if you can keep angelfish, then you can probably keep discus without much issue. I don't see why you wouldn't. Yeah, North Carolina definitely has some very distinct accents. I've had people say they've kept their discus in harder water. I don't know how hard, but mine's fairly neutral and pretty soft. No, my nitrates are never. I got more than 20 parts per million coming out of my tap. I've probably got. I don't know. When did we do a water change on this tank? Was that last Wednesday or was that last Sunday that we did the water change on this tank? It's probably been a week. We'll do a nitrate test on this tank and see what it says. Well, that sucks, Shirley. Sunday? Holy shit. That sucks. Yeah, or go down somewhere in North Carolina and then go to Boston. People in Boston don't even speak English. Most people in Massachusetts don't even speak English now that I'm thinking about it. Oh, let's see. Unknown. Hello. Thank you. Appreciate it. Everybody has an accent. Yeah, it's either Baltimore or Balmer. Yeah, let me know how much cash cha-ching you make there, Art. Speaking of internets being down, Baltimore. um, I got a notification from my internet people today saying they were having problems in the area and they'd be working on it. But I think that window was over. So if we do have any weird hiccups, um, we'll see what happens. But I mean, we're most of the way through it already. I don't think we're going to have to worry about it. $6 per node online. Interesting. Boston. Boston. It's definitely Boston. Yeah, I don't test my nitrates very often. I don't do water changes too frequently, maybe once a month on a tank like this, maybe twice a year on a tank like my 29. Um, my 55 tends to get one every few months. My Garami tank tends to get one every few weeks. Just because of the nature of the tank, it gets dirty really quickly. So each tank does its own thing, and gets there's no schedule necessarily. But when it seems for whatever reason it may need it on that particular occasion, sometimes it's the water has a lot of tannins in it. Sometimes there's a bunch of crud building up on the bottom of the tank. Sometimes the glass has a lot of algae, and I got to get in there and clean the glass down. Sometimes I need to trim the plants. On any of these occasions, why not just throw a hose in the tank and drain the water down while you're doing it, and get in there and do some tank maintenance, do a water change along with it, and you're done. So, depending on what reason I'm doing a water change, each tank gets a water change when it needs it, and based on the way that tank functions. This one doesn't need it very often. Um, One thing I will say though is they do tend to get a little dirtier a little quickly now because I've been doing an experiment where I've not changed the filter on a few of the tanks down here. I've not changed the filter since May 5th of the last year of 24. So it's been a little over a year now since I've done a filter change on this tank, and I have no idea what's inside that canister filter. So I am going to shoot a video about it whenever I get around to actually doing it. It's supposed to be an absolutely fabulous weekend this weekend, and so a bunch of time down here in the fish room shooting video. But in the very near future, we will be getting in and opening up these canisters that have been sealed for a year and seeing what's going on. So the idea that there's filtration taking place in this tank from my canister filter, I don't think so. And so once we clean the filter and put new filter material in there, this tank will tend to look a lot more, the water will look a lot more clear. The water itself's not cloudy, even though it looks like it's got kind of a haze to it. If you look at it really closely, you will see it's just got a shit ton of stuff swirling around in it. That can't get picked up because the filter is just not filtering anymore. It's just swirling around in the tank. And so the only time stuff like that gets pulled out of there is when I do water changes. So I have been doing water changes a little more frequently than I typically would if the filter wasn't a year old. Basically, at this point, the filter is functioning like a power head. It's just circulating water around the tank. I don't think it's really doing anything in the nature of filtration. All right, let me see where I was. Heavyweight. I had a Pandagara for about a week, and then I got rid of it because I only got one, and it was pretty aggressive. All right, let's go get a nitrate test on this tank. We'll use the API. I haven't done that one in a while, and that's the most visually impressive. Nitrate. That's not it. That's not it. It's probably already in there. I probably didn't even have to walk out of the room. Let's see. What is this? That is a nitrate test kit. What do you know? Sitting right next to me. So let us see what is in the discus tank, nitrate-wise. And I don't have any... Is that my old one? Okay, that's the old one. I don't have a test tube for it. So let's use the new test kit. And the new test kit, damn it, doesn't have one in there either. I thought the new tests came with the plastic vial. And when I measured the old glass vial to the plastic vial, it wasn't the same volume of water. And so I'm not sure which one I should be using. And I don't seem to have any of the plastic vials around. So we'll just go ahead and use one of the glass ones. Honestly, based on the way the nitrate test works, I don't think it would really make a difference. It's such a tiny amount difference that I don't think it's going to matter. So we'll just go ahead and use the glass. We'll fill it up, dump it out a couple times. That way there's no tap water left in it. And perfect. So we're right on the line. And we will do bottle number 1. We're going to do 10 drops of that. This is my old test kit, so let's hope we've got all 10 drops in there. All right, that was 10 drops. Bottle number 2, you want to shake vigorously for at least 30 seconds or so, or at least a good vigorous shaking, depending on how recently you've used it. The reason we do this is because it's not the liquid in the jar you're going for. There is actually a powder in the jar or in the bottle that will cake on the bottom if it settles out of it. So when you shake it, you got to shake it up not only enough to mix it up and get it completely homogeneous throughout the solution, but if it's been sitting a while, you really got to shake it vigorously to break up any sort of caked together parts. So always shake bottle number 2 very vigorously, and then we'll do 10 drops of that. All right. And I will also say, on a side note, if you're in the middle of counting your drops and you hiccup or the cat meows or the dog barks and you lose track of where you were and you weren't sure whether you're on drop 7 or 8, go from what you thought you were at. You don't have to dump it out and start over. If you're off by 1 drop, it doesn't make a single bit of difference. And I've done the comparison tests plenty of times. I've done 9 drops of one, 10 of the other, 10 of one, 11 of the other. I've tried extra drops of bottle 1, extra drops of bottle 2. If you're a drop off one way or the other, it doesn't make any difference. So again, if you do lose track, just pick up where you think you left off and you're fine. You're not going to have to worry about it. You don't have to dump it out and waste it. All right, all we got to do is let that bloom, but you can see it's already starting to turn red. And if it's turning that red that quickly, that's a pretty good sign. That's going to be a nice red bottle when we're done. And again, that was when we did a water change. When I do water changes, I go down like to here. I do big water changes because I'm going to do it. I may as well do it big. Not everybody can do that. So if you're not sure whether you can do that, that's on you if you want to experiment with doing that and seeing what happens. I'm very familiar with my water chemistry and what's coming into my tank versus what's going out, and I know I can get away with these very large water changes without upsetting anything or shifting anything wildly in my tank. My hardness doesn't shift wildly. My pH doesn't really shift wildly. All I really do is reduce the excess nitrate and excess phosphate, stuff like that that's building up in the tank. We get a lot of the tannin out. We put nice clear water back in so the tank looks nice and sparkly again. But again, I don't have to do lots of little ones. I can do the occasional really big one and just sort of start over. But even at that, you can see we're getting darker still. It's still not what I would really call red yet. It's very, very upper end of the orange, but it ain't quite what I would call red yet. So in the meantime, let's do another hit of that really good stuff. So this is my purple Poochie Puff. And if you give me half a second, I will get caught up here on comments. Smooth. That is so much better than that other stuff. I've got sticky on the outside of this too somehow. All right, let me see where it was. Somewhere up here. I remember Valley Girl. I'm old enough. Well, when I bought mine, I have been told by a lot of people that if I'd gotten a group of them, it would have been okay. And the only reason mine was aggressive was because I only had a single one by itself. Is that true? I don't know. But I've been told that by a lot of different people. But it is true that I only got one, and it was kind of aggressive towards the other fish. I was afraid it was going to latch onto the side and sort of suck on some of their, slime coat or something. I wasn't sure. What kind of predators or pests would I get in my pond? Um, for me, it would mostly probably be raccoons, maybe some wading birds. There might be a blue heron or an egret or something that might land by the pond, but my pond's pretty small. I don't think that I'd get one of those. I see a kingfisher in the stream across the street a lot, so a kingfisher would be a possibility. Um, I don't think possums would get in there and get any fish. But I know the raccoons would. I could see raccoon paw prints in there one year, all rooting around, feeling around in there. So I know the raccoons get in there. Heat advisory. We sure didn't have a heat advisory today. About the Amish. I will not talk about the Amish. I don't think. All right, somebody can stop sign me if you would. I don't have copper pipes entirely. Um, my hot water runs through copper pipes. And so whenever I'm putting water back in the tank, I am running some hot water with that, depending on the tank, depending on the water change. And so there are some tanks that get quite a lot of hot water that goes back into them. Again, if I'm running a quarter hot water into this tank and I'm putting 100 gallons of water in it, or 80 gallons of water in it, a lot of that water was hot water and running through copper pipes, because you can't run your water through PVC. If it's, I guess technically you could, but my pipes are copper. Like the plumbing from my well into the house and the well through my water system, all that's PVC. And then from the cold water system from my Xtrol, where I get my water pressure and all that stuff, all that's PVC pipes that runs up through the house. But my hot water that comes off of my furnace in there is all copper piping. So I don't think it would make that much of a difference. I would imagine maybe it was brand new copper, but after a little while, there's going to oxidation is going to form on the inside there, and it's really not going to be leaching copper into your tank. Now, if you've got well water that's got a lot of copper in it, that might be an issue. If you get like the green water stains in your sink or your bathtub, that could be excess copper, and then that might be problematic. All right, I am all caught up once again, and nobody gave me a stop sign. The stop sign culture around here is dead, except for when Laura's here. I'm missing some comments. Maybe. I'm waiting. Oh, is that the pipe you were cutting today, Zini, for your fountain? I was checking my notifications. All right. Let me find something white for you to look at. I guess the palm of my hand's close enough. Oh, we can use this. So let's do it that way. So I don't know how red you'd call that, putting it on the chart. Once it turns red to me, it's just red. But that's what my discus tank looks like. So for anybody that thinks discus are, fish that can't be, let me go find one of those charts. I'll hold it up next to it just so you get the actual accurate chart. I'm sure I have one of them around here somewhere. There's one. It's all dusty. It's been lying here forever. I just go by, is it yellow, is it orange, or is it red? So if you really want to try to hold it up to the chart and see what shade of red it is. Oops, sorry, I keep moving the wrong direction. If I had to do it, I would do the middle, whatever this is. So that says 80 parts per million right there. And then it's 160 all the way at the bottom. It's definitely not that red, but it's definitely as red as that middle one. And that says 80 parts per million. So if anybody again thinks, and I did the water change on this tank within the last week, and it's 80 parts per million, and I probably still won't do another water change on that tank for a couple more weeks easily. It's not unusual for me to go a month at a time. It's got a lot of fish in there. I got the catfish on the bottom. I've got a couple of plecos. We got all those discus in there. We got some rainbow fish in there. I got all those platies in there now. So there's a pretty good sized bio load in this tank. I know it's a 125, but still, there are limits. Yeah, my discus are definitely healthy enough. They breed all the time. Then they always eat the eggs because I never do anything to specifically separate the eggs or protect them or anything. I just see them in there breeding all the time. Um, or I should say spawning all the time. Breeding, I guess, would insinuate that they actually have offspring. They spawn all the time. I actually, if you see the heater in the corner back here, I've unplugged that just so that they always seem to lay their eggs on it. And I assumed before that the first time the heater comes on, I'm sure it got so hot it would just cook the eggs and kill them. So I've turned it off, or I've just unplugged it basically. And I do have another heater at the other end of the tank. I had two just in case. Um, so they've laid eggs on it a bunch of times since I've unplugged it, but I think 2 days was the longest the eggs ever lasted before they were just gone. So I don't know who eats them. I never. Oh, right. I got those two big Siamese algae eaters in here too. I don't know if you noticed them. So again, the discus spawn in this tank regularly, but I've never actually had a successful breed. Well, if you just saw that big ass fish down there on the bottom dart away, that was one of my Siamese algae eaters. There's two really big Siamese algae eaters in this tank, as well as everything else. And I know people forget about it because I do too. But I have a Synodontis in this tank that always hides. It's about 6 or 7 inches long. It's a pretty big fish at this point. It's been in there for a couple years. It just hides all the time. All right. It's only 9:30. I'm going to be winding down here shortly, everybody. uh, this That's a rainbow fish. This is the male, and this yellowy one is the female. They're millennium rainbow fish, and they are albinos. What plans were you thinking, Steve? While I still got you here, what were you thinking of doing this weekend? I don't see any other orange thing floating near the top of the tank. I'm not sure what to tell you. All right, Shamu, my son, be careful. Yeah, you hear a lot of stuff on YouTube there, heavyweight, but I do my own research. Um, the old timers are, in a sense, can be the worst. I know. I'm going to get myself in trouble saying this one. Let me think about how to say this without sounding like an asshole. Because I'm not trying to be an asshole. Um, so for any old timers that are watching, you got to hear me from all the way to the end. Um, but sometimes people that have been in a hobby for a long time don't necessarily have a reason to change their behavior. And so they tell you the same things they learned when they got into the hobby, 64 years ago or whenever they started keeping fish back, when they first invented the power filter. And, we've been keeping fish this way ever since. So now that you're pissed off, hang on and let me finish. If you start keeping fish and you're told by everybody in the hobby that's been in the hobby before you that you have to do X, Y, and Z in order to maintain your tank and keep it healthy and so on and so forth. Um, that may be true that if you do those things, you will keep a healthy, maintained tank, etc. But that's not necessarily the only way you can do that. So if you're somebody that's getting into the hobby in 1967 or 1990 or whenever, 2024, you get told do this, 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 and this, and this is what will keep your tank nice and healthy. So you do those things. It works because, of course, it does. That's good advice. You weren't given bad advice necessarily. But unless you're a certain kind of person that really likes to tinker and experiment and whatnot, you're going to just roll with that. That's what works. And so for the last 30 years, I got a friend that is like this. He couldn't tell you how the nitrogen cycle works, but he does a water change on this day every week, and it's this much water. He's got a mark on his tank, and he's got his routine, and he does all that. And if he were to tell you how to keep fish, he would probably give you a very specific regimen to follow. And that doesn't mean that's the only way you could keep a tank nice and healthy. So sometimes somebody that's been in the hobby for a very long time is still telling you things that were relevant 30 years ago and may still be true in a sense, but aren't, this person's been driving this idea in their own mind for 30 years. It becomes pretty habitual that this is the way you keep a tank. After 30 years of doing something, your brain tends to lose a little of its plasticity, and you think this is the way it's to be done. Again, not necessarily bad advice, but if it's given in the sense that this is how you should do it, that's not necessarily good advice either. I am the kind of person that likes to tinker with things. And, when I got into the hobby, I was also told, red is dead and nitrates are terrible. I wish I could take credit for it because I was waving the nitrate flag years before everybody else started doing it. I feel like I was one of the front runners to try to break that mentality of, this nitrate above 20 parts per million is going to kill your fish, or some people would say 10. With discus, it used to be between 0 and 5. 10 parts per million will kill your discus. And I used to, people took that shit really seriously 15 years ago. And I would see in my tanks, like, no, like you keep saying my fish are going to die, but my tank is doing fine. And eventually I just started doing my own experimenting with my tanks. I started deliberately elevating the nitrate. I started reading about nitrate. I started learning about nitrate. And I came to my own conclusion that this is just not true. I don't care how many people are saying it. It's simply not true. And so I started shooting videos explaining how it's not true. Nitrates aren't that bad for your fish. I got attacked a lot by a lot of people. I got called terrible things, a monster and a fish killer, and you've been reported, and I did all kind of weird shit for saying that nitrates aren't necessarily going to hurt your fish. But I also had a lot of people very quietly say to me, dude, thank you so much for putting this video out there. My tanks are, I do a water change twice a year. My nitrates are through the roof and my fish are fine. I don't know why everybody keeps saying all this shit about nitrates, but I'm glad somebody is finally saying you don't have to worry so much about them anymore. And gradually over the years, that grip of, nitrate kills your fish has sort of broken, and now it's not taboo to say that. There are a lot of people that still believe that, but it's not, you don't get attacked on YouTube for saying it anymore. And so that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. It's just our understanding of fish keeping hobbies, the trends, the kinds of foods we might feed fish, the way we do filters. Trends on filters come and go. If you talk to an old timer, you're probably going to get advice that you should use an undergravel filter. It's a great filter. It does amazing things, but they've faded out of favor for a lot of reasons, and well, some nefarious, some not. But they're just not that commonly used anymore. But there's still a whole generation of people that swear by them and think they're the greatest filters in the world. I've personally never even used one. I'd like to, but I'd have to start from scratch and set a whole new tank up and all of that kind of stuff. Meow. All right. All right, Fishy, get a good night, and I will talk to you later. Remember, I'll be back Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time. I don't know what time that is for you. Oh, my Siamese algae eater is way bigger than a molly. I don't know if you can see it down here in the bushes right now, but they're 7 inches long or something, that big around. Oh, what temps? This tank is at 80 or 79 and a half. I've had them in other tanks at 77, 78. They do fine. Sunday's Mother's Day. Gotcha. All right. Well, text me when you get going so it gets my ass up and moving. My kayak got rained on. I had so much water in the kayak today to get out of there. Fortunately, I took anything out that if it got wet, it would have been bad. So I did have a lot of, my seats wet and the whole inside of the kayak had to be drained. But by tomorrow, that'll all be dried out and ready to go. I think we're good to go now. So text me when you get up and get going. Well, don't necessarily text me when you get up and get going. If you're getting up at 7:30 in the morning or something, how about I text you when I get up? I'll see where you are in your plans for the day. All right, let's do one more of these, and I think I'm going to move on into first positions and start winding down. Did you see the video I posted of me paddling up past Clipper Mill the other day, Steve. I posted it on my other channel. I basically started from the Clipper Mill Bridge and went all the way up to the rapids. The water's really low. Oh, the nefarious reasons that the undergravel filter went out of popularity, and this is speculation on my part, but I don't think it's wild speculation or anything. They're just not profitable for the industry. PetSmart sells you a tank with a plastic undergravel filter and an air stone. You never have to buy anything else again. They sell you a hang on the back filter that takes filter pads and charcoal and all these other accessories. And, you keep coming back and spending money in the store over and over and over again. And it's my belief that the industry itself is who has sort of pushed people away from the sort of set it and forget it undergravel filters and moved people more towards hang on the back or canister type filters where you do frequent water changes or filter changes and you're always removing filter material and having to buy these expensive replacement pieces. And, again, speculation on my part, but does that sound like it's crazy speculation? I don't think so. I don't think that sounds wild or not. But it's also something that I just think also fell out of popularity for reasons of once it's in there, it's in there, it's under the gravel. If you ever have to do anything to it or, if it gets clogged or something, it's really disruptive to get to it again. Whereas hang on the back filters are really simple. The filter changes are easy. There's a lot of convenience to that kind of stuff. So there probably are reasons that people moved away, but it probably didn't hurt that the industry was also leaning heavily into advertising all of those benefits of the hang on the back filters and whatnot. Aqua bowls, hello. Exactly, Ian. The consumables are the way to go. Oh, he can text me at 3 a.m. if he wants. That doesn't matter. Oh, you're going fishing at sunrise. Good grief. Well, good luck on the snakehead. That'll be awesome. I almost did the ski pole thing. And I almost did the ski pole thing on the way back, too. No, I don't take my phone into my bedroom when I go to sleep at night. So if you text me, I know a lot of you don't care about this, but my routine every night before I go to bed, I don't know why I do this, but this is what I do. When I'm done with the YouTubes or whatever at the computer, I get in my what I think of as my nest. It's my recliner. It's got all my blankets and pillows and stuff in there. And then I'll either read or I'll watch YouTube videos until I sort of doze off there. A lot of times I'll just set my phone down with a YouTube video playing and I'll just sort of go to sleep. And I'll sleep in there for a little while. And if you text me then, I wake up and I get the text and everything. And it doesn't bother me. I got a friend that texts me at 2 in the morning if he's awake. If I'm awake, I get the text. If not, I sleep through it. So after sleeping for a couple hours, I get up to pee or my back is bothering me and I want to roll over or something. Then I get up and I go and get in my actual bed in the bedroom and I go to sleep. But the phone stays in the office. And so if you texted me at 3 or 4 in the morning, I wouldn't even hear it. Wouldn't bother me a bit, but I'd be waiting for me when I got up. So if you want to text me at 3 in the morning, you feel free. Excuse me. And I may very well still be awake, honestly. Oh, excuse me. Aquatic insects, I really don't know a lot about the different kind of aquatic insects. We all know that dragonfly larva can be bad. There's a kind of water beetle that will eat small fish. If you got little rice fish or something like that in a tub, you wouldn't want these little aquatic beetles swimming around in there. I don't know. I can't really think of any other insects or internal threat within the water. Again, when I think of my fish, especially if I'm putting like goldfish or something outside, they're fairly large, so not too many aquatic insects are going to be able to get after goldfish. Now, there's always the possibility of ick or some other fish disease getting in there somehow. Not sure how it would get in there. Maybe on a bird's leg, I suppose, or bird poop, maybe possibly. Um, I always just think of raccoons and birds and stuff like that. If anything's gonna prey on one of my goldfish, it's probably going to be something like that. So that's the Siamese algae eater right there, if you can see him. My torch is starting to run low already. Must have done a lot of hits tonight. That torch doesn't hold that much. But I did refill it right before we got started. All right. Let's get on up into first positions. Oh, nobody asked me my music tonight either. My music tonight was from 1969, before I was even born. Blinded. All right, let's get this one out of my way. All right, everybody. I don't feel like standing here long enough to let everybody have guesses on my music tonight. I'm feeling wound down. I'm ready for some food and rest, and my back still hurts. So we are going to call it a night. But if you were wondering what I was listening to tonight, I was listening to Metal, which is another Pink Floyd album. I listened to Obscured by Clouds the other night, and I enjoyed it. So I listened to Metal tonight. Like I said, I enjoyed Metal tonight too. I was still in the middle of Echoes when the live stream started, so I didn't get to finish it. Echoes, if you're not familiar, if you're not a Pink Floyd fan, Echoes is like 25 minutes long or something. It's a long song. The whole album only has 5 songs on it because Echoes is like one whole side is Echoes. All right, so on that note, I am going to say good night. Am I not getting... Oh, there we go. Sitting with your heat pad. Well, I'll be all right. I just need to take another muscle relaxer and some ibuprofen, and I'll be all right. I don't know if I wanted to use a heating pad. I have one of those like pulsating massagers, and when it gets really bad, I'll use that. That actually helps. And depending on where your back hurts and why, tennis balls can be pretty good too. They're soft yet firm, and if you lean up against the wall, you can roll up and down and roll a tennis ball into spots that you can't get to with your hand. Yeah, Steve, I can't believe you're still awake, especially if you're getting up at 5 in the morning or whatever to go fishing. So go fishing or go sleeping so you can go fishing, and then I'll text in when I'm waking. You got that? All right, everybody. Not going to do anything special this weekend as far as videos because, again, it's supposed to be a really nice weekend, and I'm going to spend as much time as I can out on the water or just out in the yard or whatever. So we will see you again Sunday at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Don't know what time that is where you are, but 8 o'clock Eastern, we will be back Sunday night. So hopefully you all had a good night tonight. I know I did. So thanks for watching, and good night.